For those of you that don't know me, I am Connie O'Brien and I am an account manager in the Waikato region. So I will be talking about the importance of feeding and pasture management. We all know our key goals for a lot of you is high milk production, a high 6-week in-calf rate and a low non-in-calf rate. There's a few things that flow back upstream that play into these. So conception rate, cycling rate, days to first heat, which all come back to that grazing and rumination and how well the cows recover post-calving. Before that is our feeding, and then the most critical part that comes before feeding is our pasture management. So this is what we're going to dive into today. In my mind, there's 4 key parts that play into feeding. So the first thing we need to look at is how much energy your animals require throughout the different periods of lactation. Your feed quality and utilisation of the different types of feeds that the girls are getting. Consistency of feeding, which relates back to what Ryan was talking about. Who's drawing your breaks? Are you guys communicating if there are high post-grazing covers? What happens when it's been bad weather overnight? Are you feeding out more? Are you increasing allocation? Are you going to let them go hungry? And then what is, after all of that, how are your cows responding to that? What is their milk production doing? What is their behaviour doing? So we're at quite an interesting time of the season where milk production is ramping, and so is cows' energy requirements. However, their dry matter intake is still ramping. So as an effect of that, the cows, I suppose, aren't consuming the amount of energy that they require to peak milk production. So that results in energy coming off the back of the cows and they can lose body condition. So we want to minimise as much condition they lose. So that comes back to feeding the cows correctly and putting in their, or calculating their requirements and making sure we're hitting that consistently. So just to go over a few body condition score targets coming into mating. So mature cows, this is probably a lot of you guys know this, mature cows ideally above a 4 condition score. And your first and second calvers, 4.5, as we know they need a wee bit more energy as they're still building up their frame. So we know body condition score has a huge correlation with cycling rates at planned starter mating. So this is quite an interesting graph here. This is looking at the difference in body condition scores and cycling rates 100 days pre and post planned starter mating. Planned starter mating is days 0. We can see the black line on the graph. We can see that orange line is the top line that's showing our cows that are cycling at planned starter mating with a body condition score of greater than 5. So looking at this graph, we can see they have the highest cycling rate at planned starter mating, and it decreases as their body condition score decreases. Now if we look at the green line, which is less than 4, we can see these guys used quite a bit of intervention as that jumps up. So a bit of interesting data there. I know you guys all probably know that, but it's quite interesting to see it in black and white there. One thing to note is at the top, 25% of Halter farmers, their cycling rate at planned starter mating was 83%. So can everyone please have a look at their cycling rates? Pull out the app, look at the mating tab, and have a wee look at where everyone's sitting. Is everyone sitting where they thought they'd be sitting, or anyone has a bit of work to do? What's the consensus out there? Happy? Yeah? That would be a big thing to be monitoring coming into mating team. We want to make sure that those cows are cycling. Is there anyone in here that identifies their at-risk group coming into mating? Yeah? What's your at-risk group? How do you identify that?
Well, we're only a couple of months into Halter, but yeah, it's just anything that hasn't cycled or late calvers.
So anything that hasn't cycled, are you looking at like days since calving, or it's just, yeah? Yeah, cool. That's great. That is a real important thing to do and something that Halter allows you guys to do. So you can filter a whole lot of data and identify those at-risk girls and run them as a different mob, as that is something that Halter allows you to do with arguably minimal effort. So identifying those groups of at-risk animals, prioritising their management between calving and mating. And then, yeah, it can be effective running them as separate mobs, reducing that competition, giving them extra feed, just putting a bit more time, focus and energy into those groups, getting them to where we want them to be pre-mating. There's a few different ways you can split them, or a few different things you want to be looking at. So your light and lower body condition score cows, as we saw that graph before. Your young cows, your late calvers, they're really important. Any cows that have had calving issues, they might have had like a fetal membrane, or they might have had milk fever, they might be lame, so looking after those girls. Some farmers split their mobs based on the energy requirements, so looking at their like rumination minutes, you might have your cows that have high rumination minutes, you might split them out so they're competing against like even cows, and then your lower ruminators in a separate group competing against their equivalents, I suppose. I also have one of my top performing farmers in Waikato, Pete Morgan. He has 3.5 weeks pre-mating. He splits out his non-cyclists. So he's looking at any cows that have calved over 6 weeks ago that aren't cycling. He's monitoring this daily and he runs them in a different herd. So anything that comes that has a cycle, he'll flick them back into the main herd. Anything that comes into that list the next day, he'll like split them out into that smaller herd, and he's seen great results by doing this. Some people might put their at-risk cows on once a day. There's a whole lot of different things that Halter kind of allows you guys to do. I suppose the key thing there as well is we provide you with all the data, but you need to action that data to see a difference. The data itself isn't going to improve your mating results. So coming into our requirements, there's a few different things that come into this. We've got your maintenance, how much the cows are producing a day, how far they're walking, where they are in their lactation cycle and their pregnancy, and then body condition score, whether we want them to increase or decrease. The main things coming into your energy requirements are milk production and that body condition score. So we're going to pose a little question to the crowd here, team. Let's take a 450 kg crossbred cow. How much energy do we think she requires to produce 2 kilograms of milk solid a day? So no maintenance or anything, just how much energy does she require to produce 2 kilos of milk solids? Any guesses?
220.
Not quite. Any other guesses? 240? 160. Any guesses on how much energy it takes for a cow to put on half a body condition score over 30 days? Rod, 50? Any other guesses? No, so we just, yeah, how much energy? 50? Any other guesses? 24? Close. 26. So looking at the 2 kilograms of milk solids a day, that's 13.3 kilograms of dry matter eaten at 12 ME. And then putting on our body condition score, that's 2.2 kilos of dry matter just to put on that condition. So that's a total of 15.5 dry matter eaten. That's on top of their maintenance. A really interesting metric that comes into their requirements is the distance walked by the cows each day. There is as we can see in here, there's like a massive bell curve here depending on size of farm, size of herd. But it's really interesting that whenever I go through this with farmers, we can tell how far they're walking, obviously, as it's GPS, and it's often a lot higher than what farmers think their cows are walking. So they require a lot more energy than a lot of cows than a lot of people.
Are you trying to include grazing, or is that just walking from the shed?
It's walking throughout the whole day, so in the paddock. So here we're talking about your allocation and insights. Again, this is a very key thing in the app. This is how you figure out that energy requirements. So you go through, there's a lot going on the slide, but you can calculate the cow's requirements, following through all the questions, filling that out. You can then monitor your feed and adjust the feeding quality and utilisation. Now it's important we change that throughout the season as well as that changes. We can then record how much of each feed the girls are getting and then monitoring how that's playing out in that consistency. So seeing if they're hitting their targets daily, we can look at their offered versus utilised, and then we can look at their rumination and grazing, so seeing how that's all tying it all together. And looking at energy requirements. So another question for you guys. How much kilograms of dry matter do we think a cow requires? A 450 kg cow producing 1.8 kilos of milk solids, gaining a third of a body condition score. Any guesses, guys? Come on. Jackson, take another guess. We can have a go in our calculator. So this is following it through in the app, putting in all the data about the cows, and then it's going to spit out down here their requirement, 212. It's a bit higher than what we predicted. So I suppose a key takeaway is not all feed offered is eaten, and not all feed types are equal. Another example. So for a cow that requires 212 megajoules of ME required, eating pasture that has ME of 11, 12% wastage, how many kilograms of dry matter do we think she requires? 25 kilos? 21.6. And then if we look at our second example, pasture with an ME of 12 and a 6% wastage, how much dry matter do we think she requires? 19. Close. 22? 18.7. So I suppose this is highlighting the difference in ME and the difference in wastage, how that plays out in the difference of like dry matter that these girls need. So that's a difference of 2.9 kilograms. So really important we keep that feed data up to speed in the app, and we're updating that throughout the season as it changes. So this is going to show you how to adjust your feed quality and utilization in the app. So you can toggle the bar or the slidey bar to increase or decrease your utilization, and the same with the energy. And this is just going to talk you through how it flows in the app. So logging in your supplements, putting in how much each mob is getting, and then it pulls through into a bit of data insight. We can see, are they hitting their requirements daily? What's the consistency of that? Looking at their feed offered versus feed eaten, and then down the bottom, down here we look at their grazing and rumination. So a key thing we're looking for again is that consistency. So this is an example of a Waikato farm who's put it in there, who's calculated their energy requirements. They're recording this daily. So we can see there is still like fluctuations. And these are people who are like religiously updating their feed quality and utilization as well as energy requirements. So imagine the variability in people that aren't recording that and aren't so vigilant in that. Here is a graph showing, so the blue line is rumination minutes. Green line is the grazing minutes. This is an example of like inconsistency. So we can see the rumination minutes is jumping up and down quite a lot, as is the grazing. And then over here we've got a better example where it's a lot more consistent. That's those jumps, peaks and troughs there's less between them. It's a lot more consistent. So these are things that you guys can see in the app. So we encourage you to be monitoring these. Pasture, the exciting stuff. So there's a bit of a process we want to follow. We want to collect and analyse all the data that Halter's providing you. We then want to assess our current position. We want to make a plan. We then want to execute. We then want to monitor our execution and see what that's doing to our data. So assessing your current data and your feed position. So looking at like, what are your current covers? What's the shape of your feed wedge? What's your growth rates doing? What's your leaf emergence rate doing? How can that inform your target rates? Your round length, sorry. What is your current feed demand? What are your requirements? What's your pre-graze and post-graze covers doing? And looking at if you're in a daily surplus or deficit. Should you be conserving pasture? Should you be pulling in supplement? We then want to make a plan. So looking at what levers can you guys pull. You've got your round lengths, you've got paddock choice, you've got pasture allocation, you've got supplement. Can you conserve feed, defer feed? Can you add nitrogen, gibberellic acid? Can you change your milking schedule, cow numbers? Halter gives you the ability to change a lot of things here. So we want to maximise everything that there is to offer that can help with changing or pulling these levers. Another thing we can look at is our feed wedge on the web. So this is for Pro and Unlimited customers, but this is a great thing when you're looking at your plan and looking at executing. You can put in, or you can run different scenarios, and then you can see how that's going to play out over the next 2 weeks. So a great tool when you're like playing around, trying different inputs, changing your round length, seeing how that's going to affect your wedge. Post-grazing residuals. This is another real important piece to the puzzle. monitoring these and updating these daily is going to play a big part in that feeding allocation and knowing how much the cows are getting. These are 2 different farms that have 2 different target post-graze residuals. So this bottom one, the yellow line, these guys are targeting 1,500 cover. Green line, this farm is targeting 1,600. Now these are 2 examples of farmers who are monitoring this daily. Now again, we can see there's like variation. So we want to be thinking like, these guys are rigorously focusing on this. What is the variance in residuals for guys that are just eyeballing it and not so focused in this area? What money are we leaving on the table here? What feed are we leaving on the table? What are we missing out on? Then we come into executing and monitoring. So we can put in targets in the app. Are we holding the right round speed? Are we monitoring our 3-leaf emergence rate? We want to maximise growth and we want to retain quality as much as we can. Are we achieving accurate pasture allocations? So are we hitting our daily intakes? Are we hitting our target residuals? And then Halter is a tool that allows you to be flexible with that, with the virtual fencing tool. It's just showing an example of how we can put in our round length targets in the app, and then how we can assess how we're tracking to hit our targets, and then showing us how we can input our post-graze residual targets. So updating that.